and welcome to CFI Ed at the Mill Valley Film Festival. I'm Melanie Nichols, CFI Ed Program Manager. Today we're speaking with the co-directors of the film The Snail and the Whale, Max Lang and Daniel Snaddon. Max Lang is a film director and illustrator. He has received 2 Oscar nominations in the category of Best Short Animated Film. In 2011 for the Gruffalo and in 2014 for Room on the Broom. Max lives in Los Angeles. Daniel Snaddon is the co-head of story at Sunrise Productions and a film director for Triggerfish Studios near Cape Town, South Africa. He co-directed Stickman in 2015 and was the animation supervisor on Roald Dahl's Revolting Rhymes in 2016, which won the very first European Animation Award for character animation work. The film was also nominated for an Oscar and won BAFTA, ANSI, and Annie Awards. Revolting Rhymes, as well as Belly Flop 2018, and the Emmy Award-winning Zog, also 2018, which was co-directed by Daniel and Max, have all been included in Mill Valley Film Festival screenings. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Hi.
So first, I have to mention the iconic Avengers, Bond, Game of Thrones actress, Dianna Rigg. How did you come to cast her voice as narrator?
We were big fans of her, and we felt like a female narrator would be great for the story. And yeah, we were just really lucky that she agreed to do it, and it worked out time-wise. Dan, do you want to add anything?
Absolutely, yeah. And we felt that she added an air of authority and a gravitas, but also a sort of sly sense of wit without sacrificing any warmth to her performance. She was really fantastic. We're very, very privileged.
The 2 additional main voices, Sally Hawking as the adventurous snail and Rob Brydon as the humpback whale. How did that come about?
We have actually a long history of working with Rob and Sally. Rob has appeared in all the Julia Donaldson, Axel Scheffler book adaptations. And Sally we worked with for the first time on Room on the Broom, and we were immediately big fans of her, and we're always looking forward to working with her again. Luckily, she agreed to be the voice of the snail. It's kind of our dream cast, to be honest.
How did you meet and decide to co-direct?
Dan, I'll tell you that.
So I was on holiday with my wife, and Max and I had been emailing a little bit because Max and Suzanne, his wife, adapted Stickman, which is the first movie that I directed for Triggerfish with You Room to Spare. And I said, hey, I'm in town, and Max said, oh, let's have lunch. So we met up and had lunch, and I'd just come off Revolting Rhymes as animation supervisor, and Max's very good friends, Jan and Jacob, were directing that. So we got to catch up about that experience, which was a lot of fun. And I think it was quite serendipitous, because I think it was just a week or 2 weeks later that Magic Light Pictures called and asked me, hey, apparently you and Max have met. What do you think about doing a movie together? So I was very flattered and really stoked with the idea.
Are you all ever in the same country and city, or do you send things back and forth electronically?
Very rarely, but it's really mostly me who is in Los Angeles, and then the producers who are actually in London. And then most of the actual work on the film, on the picture, is happening in South Africa and Cape Town. So Dan was always with the team at the studio. We would then meet for post-production in London with everyone. Mm-hmm. But like I myself have only been like 1 week in South Africa because the travel was too extensive. It takes over 24 hours to get from the West Coast to South Africa. So it just didn't really make sense. And luckily with the new technology, we can work quite well remotely.
You've made a couple films with the author Julia Donaldson. How do you choose the books that you want to make into films?
I mean, my whole directing career started with the Gruffalo back. I think we worked on the film in 2008, 2009. So that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And even then, we were always quite aware that there were other books of Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler, which are really a staple in the UK, and it has become quite a tradition for these films to air around Christmas as Christmas specials on the BBC. So we really were always like keeping an eye on Julia's and Axel's books. And The Snail and the Whale was a book that I've been wanting to adapt really since 2008. So it was really like we had read the Gruffalo and Room on the Broom, and I was like, oh, we have to do this book. But at that time, the technology was just not there yet. Like we couldn't have made that film in 2009 with all the water simulation and the scope. It's much more complex than our previous films. So it's been quite a fortunate alignment of circumstances that allowed us to then go back and make that film almost 10 years later.
Are there multiple animation techniques used in that film at the end when there's a bunch of people gathered, I think maybe the class or on the beach? It seems like it's claymation, but during other portions of the film, it seems like other techniques. Is it mixed?
It's not mixed. It's all CG. Our early films, like the Gruffalo or Room on the Broom, were actually a combination of stop motion sets and CG characters. So that established the look for these series of films. And at some point we switched to full CG because especially for the Snail and the Whale with the water simulation, it didn't make sense to build that as set. It would have been impossible. And so with that, we are always kind of still leaning into that stop motion look a little bit, but it is all generated on the computer.
The team are going to be thrilled to hear that you thought it was mixed medium. That's exactly what they were aiming for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of the team, I love the theme of adventure and cooperation. Our shorts program for children this year is called Love and Teamwork, so that film perfectly described it. I noticed that there was a large crew for the film. In what ways is there a lot of collaboration and cooperation making animated films?
Shall I take this, Max?
Yeah, you go ahead, and then I might add.
Yeah. So I think animation, to be honest, is one of the most collaborative mediums, creative mediums there is, because every single image that you see in an animated film has been touched by multiple artists. They're the artists who build all the sets. They're the artists who paint everything digitally now, but in stop motion, obviously, and they're painting real stuff. The people who make the characters, the people who then take the characters and add life to them, and everybody needs to sort of be on the same page, but then also adding to it their own sense of who the characters are, what the world is, and it's sort of like something that you dream up together, and so good cooperation and collaboration and communication. It's all part of the recipe to bringing something like The Snail and the Whale to life.
What would you say was the biggest challenge making the film?
It's definitely the water. And it's one of those things to do in computer graphics, which is extremely expensive because it still relies a lot on trying to build a simulation of reality, even though you're finding ways to approximate reality. It's still very much based on little particles all interacting with each other in a space with gravity and velocities and things sort of moving through them. And the really tricky thing is that we all instinctively as humans know what water looks like. We've looked at a lot of water, and whether you've been paying attention or not, it all goes in there. So you can tell if something's not quite right. And because we also have two different worlds almost. You have the macroscopic world of the whale, and then you have the microscopic world of the snail. There isn't too much that we could fudge. You know, we had to really make the water work really close up, where the droplets are all really big, and you know, when they land around snail, they look like, you know, small droplets but close up. And then you've got to pull back, and you've got to get these really big moments with the whale. So the team was put together specifically on this film. The water team was built specifically to do that, and they did a great job. And some of them were right out of college, and they still did a great job. So we were really fortunate with them. They spent a lot of hard hours getting us that water.
So on a story level, one of the big questions was, can we even make a film that features a tiny snail and a big whale who are not talking a lot amongst each other? There's not a lot of dialogue added to the original lines of the book. And so it was really not clear if we could establish a relationship between these two characters that are from such different worlds. And luckily it all worked out, but it's easy to forget that was a big question mark. But a lot of people actually asked us exactly about that when we were starting to make the film. Like, how are you even going to do this? And I can't imagine how it's going to work. And now, when you see the final film, you get a sense how it did work. But it was not clear from the beginning. No.
Speaking of dialogue, I loved the poetry and the rhyming, and I also really loved the dolphin sounds, the whales singing. What was the most fun for each of you?
For me, it was really a long dream come true to actually make the film, because I've honestly been dreaming about making this film for 10 years. So when it finally happened, and it all came together, it was just the whole process of making it, and then having the team in South Africa was already so established, working with Dan and everyone. Like, it was overall a very easy production, because I think we had all learned so much on the previous projects. So I feel like, even though it was probably our technically most challenging film, it was a very, very pleasant experience.
Sounds like you had a great team.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a fantastic team. Yeah.
Do either of you have your own favorite sea animals, and why?
That's a very good question. I've always loved manta rays, personally. I just think there's something very otherworldly, and they have a sort of a friendliness and I don't know, they have a sort of sense of generosity about them. I don't know where I get that from, but it's something I read in the way they move.
I've always loved seals, and actually we did have a sequence with seals in the film that didn't make the final cut.
That's true.
But you can't do everything. Yeah.
Really? Have either of you ever been to either the Arctic or Antarctica?
I haven't been to the Arctic or Antarctica, but I have been to Alaska, and we actually have seen glaciers and whales there.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. That's really cool. I have a friend who's been to Antarctica, and he's showed us lots of pictures. It seems amazing.
Cute penguins. Your penguins were very cute, too.
We have lovely penguins in South Africa, yeah.
Can either of you share what you're currently working on?
I'm working on on lots of different projects. They're all in various stages. yeah. So
yeah. I'm currently working as co-head of story at a company here in South Africa called Sunrise, and we're developing a feature film, and it's going to be quite a international production. Again, we have a lot of people coming to join the team from the States, actually, and from Europe. So that's really exciting. And I'm developing a feature film with Triggerfish, and also doing a little bit of work for Magic Light Pictures here and there too.
And do either of you have any advice for young people who might like to be involved in animation? Maybe you could start with, did you both draw when you were young? What was your first idea that you might want to do animation as a career? Max?
I've always been drawing my whole life. It's kind of my way of expressing myself. And then pretty much from when I was like 12 years old and I had seen The Lion King, I was obsessed with animation. I always wanted to do that as a job. And back then, we didn't have the internet yet, and the world was not that connected. I was living in Germany. So that all felt very, very far away, and I tried to piece it together how to make a career out of that. Luckily today, it's much more straightforward and easier to get involved with animation. First of all, there's tons of YouTube tutorials. Like if you're interested in that, Google it on YouTube, and there's endless possibilities of learning about animation. The software is not that expensive anymore and readily available. Often you can even get like student versions or free trial versions that you can just learn and explore the technology with. There's great forums where you can connect with like-minded people very easily. I would suggest that if you're lucky enough that you are around studios, like if you are on the West Coast, I mean, try to visit the studios, talk to artists. They're usually very friendly and very happy to help young upcoming artists. And so I would, if you're lucky enough to have that physical, what do you say? I'm blanking the word. If you're lucky enough to be close to a studio, definitely make use of that. Alternatively, if there are schools around where people are studying these kind of things, go there early, talk to the people. What are their experiences? Like, what can you do very specifically for the area you're living in? Like, what are the options education-wise? Does it make sense to go to a school there, or does it make more sense to do an online class? There's really, really lots of options these days. Dan, do you want to add anything to that?
Dan, how did you start? Did you always draw?
I did. I always drew, and when I was in primary school, I used to do the covers for I did a couple of covers for the school magazines, and sort of used to shut myself away with our Windows 95 computer and make animations with a mouse, 1 pixel at a time, which is, very, very thankless endeavor. But I think for me, I can remember getting Peter Lord and David Sproxton's from Aardman's book called Cracking Animation, and for Christmas one year, and it kind of showed you all about stop motion, how they built characters, how they you had to have cameras, and you had to keep them still, and you had to have lights, and you had to keep them still. And that really kind of opened things up for me. And I was very fortunate. I started studying in 2000, and already in South Africa there were courses you could do in computer graphics, even back then. So in terms of what advice I would give, is that I would say if you think that you might like to animate, just do it. And if you can spend all that time sort of doing all those different drawings or building those little sets and moving the characters and then taking your digital camera and then one frame at a time, making something move, and you get a huge kick out of it, then it might be for you. If you do all that work and you don't get a huge kick out of it, then definitely try something else. And I will also add that Triggerfish actually has a website called Triggerfish Academy, which you can just Google. And they have a whole bunch of different videos breaking down the animation industry, the different jobs, and then actually have a couple of links to sites like Max was saying, forums and software that you can get for free and tutorials and that kind of stuff. So it's a nice little hub if you want to kind of get a bit of an inroad.
And actually, I would like to add one more thing. Because we always think of animation as like, you have to draw and you're animating, but there's actually lots of different fields within the production of an animated films. Like some are more technological, some are more about managing people or schedules. There's lots of ways you can be involved. It's not like, even if you can't draw at all, but you're really into animated films, there's probably a place for you there, because all you really need to be is passionate about the medium, and it's not just about drawing or one thing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Max Lang Daniel Snaddon, thanks so much for joining CFI Ed at the Mill Valley Film Festival, talking about your film, The Snail and the Whale.
Thank you very much, Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie.